Have you ever felt like you see the world through a different lens than others, as if you were born with a consciousness too acute for this ordinary world? This hyperconsciousness is no accident. Carl Jung, the revolutionary explorer of the unconscious, discovered that some people are psychologically chosen. Their minds operate at a frequency that separates them from the masses. It's no coincidence that you question your purpose while others merely exist. What Jung revealed about these souls is disturbing. They carry a psychological burden invisible to common eyes. Their dreams are more vivid, their intuitions more precise, their anguish deeper. The most surprising thing? This is not a flaw, but a sign, a psychic marker that Jung identified in those destined to transform their inner reality into something extraordinary. The question is not whether you are one of the chosen ones, but what to do with this consciousness that few understand and many fear. Deep within our minds lies a powerful pattern that Carl Jung discovered, something he called the hero archetype. This isn't just a character in stories, it's a psychological blueprint embedded in our unconscious. When Jung studied myths across different cultures, he noticed something remarkable. Whether in ancient Greek legends, Norse sagas, or tribal stories from Africa and the Americas, the hero's journey followed strikingly similar patterns. This wasn't coincidence. Jung realized these stories reflected something fundamental about human psychology, a pattern that exists within all of us, but one that manifests more powerfully in certain individuals. The hero's journey begins with a call, a persistent feeling that there's something more to life than what appears on the surface. You might feel this as a strange dissatisfaction with ordinary existence, a sense that you're meant for something different, even when you can't explain why. This calling often appears first in childhood. While other children accept the world as it is presented to them, the potential hero questions everything, sees patterns others miss, and feels oddly out of place. What makes this calling so difficult to recognize is that our modern society lacks the language and rituals to acknowledge it. In ancient times, individuals who displayed these signs were often identified by elders and guided toward their purpose. Today, this inner voice competes with endless distractions and social pressures pushing toward conformity. Many potential heroes dismiss their calling as impractical fantasy or psychological peculiarity. But the unconscious mind is persistent. When ignored, the call doesn't disappear. It intensifies. Dreams become more vivid and symbolic. Coincidences multiply. Relationships that keep you from your path become strained. Even physical symptoms might manifest as your psyche tries desperately to redirect your attention toward your true nature. The resistance to this call is what Jung termed the refusal of the call, a critical stage where many potential heroes falter. This resistance stems from fear of standing apart from others, fear of the unknown journey ahead, fear of discovering aspects of yourself that might shatter your comfortable self-image. The ego clings to safety, while the self, Jung's term for the complete personality, including both conscious and unconscious elements, pushes toward wholeness. Those who push through this resistance enter what Jung called the threshold, the boundary between the ordinary world and the special world of the hero's journey. Crossing this threshold requires courage and often a guide or mentor figure. In psychological terms, this mentor might appear as an actual person who recognizes your potential, or it might emerge from within as intuitive wisdom that suddenly becomes accessible. What sets the chosen ones apart is not that they alone receive this call, but that they are among the few who answer it. The hero archetype activates in anyone who faces their fears and takes that first step into the unknown. The journey transforms not just the individual, but ripples outward, affecting others who witness this authentic path. Jung observed that when someone begins to live according to their true nature rather than social expectations, they develop a kind of psychological magnetism. Others are drawn to their authenticity, even when they can't articulate why. This isn't mystical but deeply psychological. Humans instinctively recognize and respect internal coherence when they see it. The hero's journey isn't about grand external achievements, though these may come. It's primarily about the courage to face the unknown parts of yourself, to integrate the shadow elements of your personality and become more whole. In Jung's view, this internal battle with our fears and limitations is the true dragon that heroes must slay. Listen carefully to the persistent questions that haunt your quiet moments. Notice the dreams that recur with increasing urgency. Pay attention to the activities that make you lose track of time, where you feel most alive. These are not random. They are signposts pointing toward your unique path. The hero archetype doesn't demand that you save the world. It asks only that you save yourself from the slow death of an unlived life. And in doing so, you may indeed change the world around you in ways you never imagined. What we casually dismiss as coincidence often carries profound meaning for those attuned to notice. Jung coined the term synchronicity to describe these meaningful coincidences, events connected not by cause and effect, but by their significance to the person experiencing them. This phenomenon intensifies dramatically for the chosen ones, creating an almost supernatural quality to their lives that others might envy or dismiss. Synchronicity represents one of Jung's most revolutionary contributions to psychology, the idea that the external world sometimes mirrors our internal psychological state in ways that defy conventional explanation. Unlike superstition, synchronicity doesn't claim that thinking about something makes it happen. Rather, it suggests that sometimes the inner and outer worlds align in meaningful ways that serve as signposts on our journey. By the way, if you're curious to go even deeper and integrate your shadows and light, check out the Sim Method ebook. It's a concise guide that can help you unlock your inner power in just 5 minutes a day. The link is in the first pinned comment below. For someone walking the path of the chosen, these synchronicities often cluster around critical decision points. You might think about a question all day, then randomly open a book to find the exact passage that addresses your dilemma. Or perhaps you repeatedly encounter the same unusual symbol during a period of transformation. Maybe you think of someone for the first time in years, only to have them call you moments later with an opportunity that aligns perfectly with your emerging purpose. The chosen ones learn to recognize these events not as random chance, but as confirmation they're moving in harmony with deeper currents of life. Jung observed that when someone begins the process of individuation, becoming their complete self, the boundary between internal and external reality becomes more permeable. The unconscious communicates not just through dreams, but through external events carrying symbolic meaning. What makes synchronicities different from simple confirmation bias is their objective improbability and their emotional impact. They often involve precise timing or specific details that would be extraordinarily unlikely to occur by chance. The emotional charge that accompanies them, a feeling of awe, wonder, or profound recognition, signals their importance to our psychological development. The chosen ones develop a particular relationship with time itself. Rather than experiencing life as a linear progression of cause and effect, they begin to perceive patterns and connections across time. The past doesn't just influence the present, it speaks to it. The future doesn't just await us, it calls to us. This more fluid relationship with time isn't mystical delusion, but rather a more sophisticated understanding of psychological reality. Jung documented countless cases where patients reported synchronistic events during pivotal moments in therapy. As they approached psychological breakthroughs, the external world seemed to conspire to reinforce their new insights. A dream about a scarab beetle might be followed by an actual rare beetle tapping at the therapy room window. A patient wrestling with a decision might encounter a series of strangers who, without prompting, offer advice that points consistently in one direction. Learning to work with synchronicity requires developing what Jung called active imagination, a state of receptive awareness where we remain open to symbolic meaning without forcing interpretations. The chosen ones cultivate this state not just during meditation or reflection, but as a background awareness throughout daily life. They develop a double vision, attending to the practical aspects of experience while simultaneously remaining alert to its symbolic dimensions. This sensitivity to meaning doesn't happen overnight. It develops gradually as we practice paying attention to the patterns in our lives. Begin by noting coincidences in a journal without immediately judging their significance. Over time, patterns emerge that reveal the unique symbolic language through which your unconscious communicates with you. What's most remarkable about synchronicities is how personal they feel, as if the universe itself acknowledges your specific journey. This sense of being seen by life creates a profound feeling of belonging and purpose that sustains the chosen ones through difficult passages. While others might feel adrift in an indifferent cosmos, those who experience synchronicity feel guided, even when they don't understand the full meaning of the signs they receive. The path of the chosen isn't about waiting passively for magical signs. Rather, synchronicities tend to multiply when we actively engage with life's deeper questions and take steps, however small, toward authentic self-expression. As Jung noted, when we are in our destiny, destiny is in us. The external confirmation, follows the internal commitment, not the other way around. By accepting synchronicity as a natural aspect of psychological reality, the chosen ones develop a relationship with life that transcends the materialistic worldview. They experience existence not as a series of random events, but as a meaningful unfolding that responds to their deepest intentions and questions. This doesn't eliminate life's challenges, but it transforms how they're experienced, not as obstacles, but as initiations into greater wholeness. Every light casts a shadow, and the brighter the light, the darker the shadow becomes. This psychological truth lies at the heart of Jung's concept of the shadow, the hidden, often difficult aspects of ourselves that we prefer not to acknowledge. For the chosen ones, this shadow element takes on unique characteristics that create both their greatest challenges and, paradoxically, their most profound strengths. The shadow isn't evil, it's simply what we've rejected, denied, or never developed within ourselves. Jung observed that the more someone identifies with their special calling or purpose, the more powerful their shadow becomes. This creates a psychological tension that can either destroy the chosen one or transform them into something truly remarkable. Those who appear most enlightened often wrestle with the darkest inner demons. Many chosen ones initially experience their shadow as a profound sense of unworthiness. Despite external evidence of their gifts or accomplishments, they feel like imposters. This isn't simple modesty, but a psychological compensation. The unconscious, seeking balance, responds to the ego's growing sense of specialness by generating powerful feelings of inadequacy. These feelings aren't to be overcome, but integrated, acknowledged as part of the full spectrum of who you are. The shadow also manifests as the temptation to misuse power. Jung noted that individuals who access deeper layers of psychological energy face unique moral challenges. The chosen one might begin to feel above ordinary rules or entitled to special treatment. They might rationalize manipulative behavior as necessary for their mission. This inflation of the ego represents one of the greatest dangers on the path, the point where many potential heroes fall into becoming villains instead. What makes the shadow particularly troublesome for the chosen ones is that it often disguises itself as virtue. The drive to help others can mask an unhealthy need for validation. The pursuit of truth can hide a judgmental attitude toward those who don't share your insights. The dedication to a cause can conceal an avoidance of personal intimacy and vulnerability. These shadow elements don't make the original impulse false, but they complicate it in ways that require honest self-reflection. The chosen ones also carry a unique form of shadow that Jung called the collective shadow, the disowned aspects not just of themselves, but of the larger culture they exist within. They often find themselves mysteriously attracting hostility or projection from others who unconsciously recognize them as carriers of what the collective wishes to deny. This explains why genuinely transformative individuals often face resistance that seems disproportionate to anything they've actually done. The weight of purpose creates another shadow challenge, the temptation to escape. Many chosen ones experience periods of retreat or self-sabotage when the responsibility feels too great. They might develop addictive behaviors, engage in reckless actions, or simply abandon their path altogether. Jung saw these retreats not as failures, but as necessary psychological compensations, the psyche's attempt to balance intense purpose with human limitations. Rather than fighting or denying these shadow elements, Jung advocated conscious relationship with them. This begins with simple acknowledgement, recognizing that your darkest impulses and most troubling emotions belong to you. The chosen ones learn to ask what these shadow aspects want and need, treating them as messengers rather than enemies. Through this dialogue, the energy previously wasted on internal conflict becomes available for creative expression. Working with the shadow requires developing what Jung called active imagination, a waking dialogue with unconscious elements where you allow them to speak through images, writing, or internal conversation. This practice reveals that shadow elements, once acknowledged, often transform into allies, offering gifts of insight, creativity, and authentic power that were previously inaccessible. The shadow of the chosen ones also includes what Jung termed the gold in the shadow, positive qualities that remain undeveloped because they contradict our conscious self-image. The intensely spiritual person might have untapped practical abilities. The intellectual might have unexplored artistic talents. The natural leader might have undeveloped capacities for receptivity and surrender. Integrating these golden shadow elements creates a fuller, more balanced expression of purpose. The ultimate paradox of the shadow work is that embracing your darkness doesn't make you darker. It makes you more whole, more human, and ultimately more light-filled. The chosen ones who acknowledge their shadow inspire others not through perfect example, but through authentic integration. They demonstrate that greatness doesn't require perfection, but rather the courage to embrace the full spectrum of human experience, the light and the dark, the sacred and the profane, the heroic and the ordinary. By carrying both their special purpose and their shadow consciously, the chosen ones embody what Jung called the wounded healer, someone whose power to help others comes precisely from their intimate knowledge of their own wounds. This integration transforms the burden of purpose from a crushing weight into a grounded, sustainable capacity to serve from the fullness of who they truly are. At the heart of Jung's understanding of the chosen ones lies the concept of individuation, the lifelong process of psychological integration that transforms a person from a fragment into a whole. This isn't about becoming perfect or achieving some final state of enlightenment. Rather, it's an ongoing journey of becoming increasingly yourself, distinct from collective expectations, yet paradoxically more connected to the universal human experience. Individuation begins with differentiation. the gradual process of distinguishing your authentic self from the various masks you've adopted to function in society. Jung called these masks personas, the roles we play and identities we construct to meet external demands. For the chosen ones, this differentiation often starts earlier and cuts deeper than it does for others. They feel the friction between their inner truth and outer expectations more acutely, creating both suffering and the motivation to resolve this tension. Unlike those who might dabble in self-improvement, the chosen ones experience individuation as an imperative, not something they choose, but something that chooses them. Jung observed that this process often accelerates after a psychological crisis or during major life transitions. The stable structures of identity break down, creating both danger and opportunity. In this liminal space, aspects of the self previously hidden in the unconscious become accessible. The chosen ones encounter what Jung called the transcendent function, the psyche's natural tendency to seek wholeness by bringing opposing elements into relationship. This isn't about eliminating conflict but transforming it. Internal contradictions between thinking and feeling, between intuition and sensation, between masculine and feminine energies, become creative tensions rather than problems to solve. This capacity to hold opposing truths simultaneously distinguishes the individuated person from those who seek comfort in simplistic certainties. Dreams play a crucial role in this process. Jung discovered that the unconscious communicates through dreams, not just to reveal repressed content, but to guide the individuation journey. The chosen ones learn to engage with their dreams not as puzzles to decode, but as ongoing dialogues with deeper aspects of themselves. Their dream life often becomes extraordinarily rich, featuring archetypal symbols and scenarios that reflect their unique developmental path. The middle stage of individuation involves what Jung called active imagination, a waking dialogue with unconscious elements, where images and insights arise spontaneously. This practice develops a fluid boundary between conscious and unconscious, allowing these two aspects of the psyche to inform each other without either dominating. The chosen ones cultivate this middle space between knowing and not knowing, between control and surrender. As individuation progresses, the chosen ones experience a profound shift in their relationship to themselves. The center of personality gradually transfers from the ego, with its concerns about status, control, and self-image, to what Jung called the self, the organizing center of the total personality. This doesn't eliminate the ego, but places it in proper relationship to the larger whole, like a planet orbiting a sun, rather than believing itself to be the entire solar system. This shift creates a distinctive quality that others often sense in individuated people, a certain groundedness combined with spaciousness. They seem less driven by external validation, yet more effectively engaged with the world. They take themselves less seriously in some ways, yet pursue their purpose with remarkable dedication. They become more uniquely themselves, yet less attached to any fixed identity. This paradoxical quality creates both attraction and confusion in those who encounter them. The chosen ones also develop what Jung called symbolic consciousness, the ability to perceive the world not just literally, but symbolically. Ordinary experiences reveal deeper meanings, challenges become initiations, relationships serve as mirrors. This symbolic perception doesn't replace practical engagement with reality, but enriches it, creating a multi-dimensional experience of life that feels both more magical and more real than conventional consciousness allows. Advanced individuation leads to what Jung described as a widening of consciousness, an expansion beyond purely personal concerns to engage with collective and universal dimensions of experience. The chosen ones increasingly perceive their individual journey as part of larger patterns of cultural and spiritual evolution. Their personal wounds connect them to collective healing. Their unique gifts find expression in service to something greater than themselves. The ultimate fruit of individuation isn't separation from others, but a deeper, more authentic form of connection. By becoming more fully yourself, you paradoxically become more universal, more able to recognize and honor the essential humanity in everyone you meet. The chosen ones develop what Jung called objective personality, the capacity to relate to others, not through projection and expectation, but through genuine presence and recognition. This journey of individuation explains why the chosen ones often seem both ordinary and extraordinary simultaneously. They haven't escaped human limitations, but have integrated them into a larger wholeness. They haven't transcended emotion, but have developed a more conscious relationship with it. They haven't abandoned the material world, but have discovered the sacred dimension within it. This integration of apparent opposites creates a natural authority that inspires others not through dominance, but through authenticity. The realm of dreams represents one of the most direct channels through which the unconscious communicates with the chosen ones. Jung discovered that dreams aren't merely random neural firing or simple wish fulfillment as Freud suggested. They serve as sophisticated messages from deeper layers of the psyche, offering guidance, warning, and insight that the conscious mind couldn't access otherwise. For the chosen ones, this dream communication often takes on extraordinary qualities that signal their unique psychological journey. While everyone dreams, the chosen ones typically experience dreams with distinctive characteristics. Their dreams often feature powerful archetypal symbols, ancient patterns that Jung found repeated across cultures throughout human history. They might encounter wise figures offering direct guidance, symbolic animals representing psychological forces, or landscapes that transform according to their inner development. These aren't mere fantasies, but connections to what Jung called the collective unconscious, the layer of psyche we share with all humanity. The chosen ones frequently report dreams that feel qualitatively different from ordinary dreams, more vivid, more coherent, more emotionally impactful. Jung termed these big dreams and noted their appearance at critical junctures in a person's development. Unlike everyday dreams that process recent experiences, big dreams often arrive before major life transitions, providing symbolic preparation for challenges not yet consciously recognized. They carry a sense of significance that lingers long after waking. What truly distinguishes the dream life of the chosen ones is their relationship to these nocturnal messages. Rather than dismissing dreams as meaningless, they develop a receptive attention to them. They keep dream journals, notice patterns over time, and allow dream images to inform their waking decisions. This receptivity creates a feedback loop. The more seriously they take their dreams, the more detailed and helpful the dream communication becomes. Beyond ordinary dreams, some chosen ones experience what Jung called active imagination, a waking state where dreamlike imagery emerges spontaneously while consciousness remains present. This practice creates a bridge between conscious and unconscious, allowing direct dialogue with symbolic figures and forces. Unlike passive fantasy, active imagination involves genuine exchange. The conscious mind speaks and listens rather than simply controlling the narrative. Visions represent another channel of communication that sometimes appears in the lives of the chosen. Jung carefully distinguished between pathological hallucinations and genuine visionary experience. The difference lies not just in content, but in effect. True visions enhance psychological integration rather than fragmenting it. They connect the individual to transpersonal meaning rather than isolating them in private reality. They inspire creative action rather than passive withdrawal. Many chosen ones report moments of what Jung called numinous experience, encounters with something that feels simultaneously deeply personal and vastly beyond the personal. These experiences often occur in nature during creative work, in profound human connection, or in contemplative states. They bring a sense of meaning that transcends intellectual understanding, creating what Jung described as a feeling of being united with the entire cosmos. But the unconscious also communicates through the body itself. The chosen ones often notice physical sensations that carry symbolic meaning, unexplained energy movements, spontaneous gestures, or somatic responses to situations before conscious understanding arrives. Jung observed that the body often knows what the mind hasn't yet recognized, particularly regarding authentic direction and purpose. Synchronicities, meaningful coincidences between inner and outer events, form another channel of unconscious communication. The chosen ones might think about a question, then randomly encounter exactly the information needed to address it. Or they might dream of a symbol, then repeatedly encounter that same symbol in waking life. These aren't mere coincidences, but what Jung called a causal connecting principles, patterns of meaning that transcend conventional cause and effect. Working productively with these communications requires developing what Jung called symbolic thinking, the capacity to engage with symbols not as codes to crack, but as living bridges between known and unknown aspects of reality. The chosen ones learn to approach symbolic material with both critical discernment and open receptivity, neither dismissing its significance nor inflating its importance. This symbolic thinking extends beyond personal development to cultural and collective patterns. The chosen ones often sense emerging cultural trends before they become obvious, recognizing the symbolic dimensions of social movements, technological developments, or artistic expressions. This isn't supernatural forecasting, but rather heightened sensitivity to the unconscious currents shaping collective experience. The ultimate value of these various communications lies not in their mysterious qualities, but in their practical effect. Dreams and visions guide the chosen ones toward greater wholeness, creativity, and authentic purpose. They reveal blind spots, highlight untapped potentials, warn of unhealthy patterns, and confirm directions aligned with deeper truth. They transform the journey from a solitary struggle to a dialogue with something larger than the individual ego, yet intimately connected to personal destiny. By developing this ongoing relationship with unconscious communication, the chosen ones access a form of guidance unavailable through conventional thinking alone. They move through life not just with rational strategies, but with an intuitive sense of timing and direction that often proves more effective than purely logical planning. They embody what Jung called the wisdom of uncertainty, the capacity to act decisively without rigid certainty, remaining open to continuous revelation. Every human life tells a story, but not everyone consciously participates in shaping their narrative. Jung observed that the chosen ones eventually recognize and actively engage with what he called their personal myth, the deeper pattern of meaning unfolding through their unique life journey. This isn't about creating fantasy or self-aggrandizement, but about discerning the authentic story trying to live itself through you, beyond social expectations or ego preferences. The personal myth often reveals itself gradually through recurring themes and patterns. Certain challenges return in different forms throughout life. Particular symbols or images appear repeatedly in dreams, creative work, and meaningful coincidences. Specific questions or fascinations persist despite changing circumstances. These patterns aren't random, but point toward the unique contribution each chosen one is designed to make. Jung discovered that personal myths often connect to universal mythic patterns, what he called archetypes, while expressing these patterns in highly individual ways. One person might live a journey of the healer, another the teacher, another the creator, another the seeker. These aren't roles to adopt consciously, but deeper currents that reveal themselves through natural talents, persistent interests, and the challenges that seem to find you, regardless of your conscious intentions. Recognizing your personal myth begins with honest reflection on your life story. The chosen ones learn to view their biography not just as a series of random events, but as a meaningful unfolding. Childhood interests that seemed insignificant might contain seeds of your true purpose. Painful experiences often reveal themselves as necessary initiations. Even apparent failures and wrong turns show themselves as essential parts of the journey toward authenticity. The personal myth always involves some form of death and rebirth, periods where an old identity or way of being must be surrendered before a new, more authentic expression can emerge. Jung called these transitions psychological deaths and noted their critical importance in the lives of the chosen ones. These passages often involve profound disorientation, loss of meaning, or existential crisis before resolution appears. What distinguishes the chosen ones isn't the absence of such crises, but their willingness to move through them consciously. Living your personal myth requires developing what Jung called the symbolic attitude, perceiving life events not just literally, but for their deeper significance. A career setback might symbolize the need to realign with authentic purpose. A relationship challenge might represent an encounter with a previously unconscious aspect of yourself. A health issue might embody a psychological pattern seeking recognition. This symbolic perception doesn't replace practical action, but informs it with deeper awareness. The chosen ones gradually learn to distinguish between the authentic personal myth and what Jung called borrowed narratives, stories adopted from family, culture, or spiritual traditions that may not align with their true nature. This discernment isn't about rejecting tradition, but about finding your unique relationship to it. The question becomes not, what should my life story be, but rather, what story is already trying to live itself through me? Particular relationships play crucial roles in the unfolding of the personal myth. Jung noted that certain people enter our lives as agents of destiny, mirrors, catalysts, teachers, or companions who help us recognize and express our authentic nature. These relationships often carry a sense of familiarity or recognition beyond their actual history, as if we somehow knew each other before meeting. The chosen ones learn to honor these connections without becoming dependent on them. Creating concrete forms of expression for your personal myth accelerates its development. Jung encouraged his patients to engage with their inner material through writing, drawing, movement, or other creative practices. These expressions need not be artistic in the conventional sense, but should externalize inner content, creating a dialogue between conscious intention and unconscious wisdom. Through this dialogue, the personal myth becomes increasingly clear and accessible. The chosen ones eventually reach what Jung called the stage of return, the point where personal development connects to collective contribution. Having discovered something authentic within themselves, they naturally seek to share it with others, not through preaching or persuasion, but through embodied example. Their personal myth expands to include service to something larger than individual fulfillment, though this service remains grounded in authentic self-expression rather than self-sacrifice. Living your personal myth doesn't guarantee external success or recognition. Jung observed that some of the most psychologically developed individuals lived outwardly ordinary lives while experiencing extraordinary inner richness. What the personal myth does provide is a sense of meaning that transcends conventional measures of achievement, the profound satisfaction of becoming who you truly are and offering your unique gifts without distortion or compromise. The ultimate test of alignment with your personal myth is what Jung called a feeling of inevitability, the The sense that despite difficulties and doubts, you couldn't authentically be anyone else or follow any other path. This isn't fatalistic resignation, but creative acceptance of your particular nature and calling. The chosen ones experience both the freedom of authentic choice and the necessity of being true to their deeper self, transcending the apparent contradiction between destiny and free will. By consciously engaging with their personal myth, the chosen ones transform the universal human search for meaning into a lived reality. They discover that purpose isn't something to find externally, but something to recognize and express from within. In a world increasingly dominated by collective narratives and artificial identities, they embody what Jung considered humanity's greatest potential: the capacity for genuine individuality in service to collective evolution, each unique story contributing to the larger human journey toward consciousness and wholeness.